Hey, Bobby. Joe Viglione, would you like to talk on the air? Good. We're now on the air, Bobby.
Okay.
Cool. I'm sorry I didn't get a hold of you earlier.
Yeah, that's fine. We're good to go here.
You've got a new book out, Bobby Whitlock.
I do.
And the title is?
Bobby Whitlock, it's a rock and roll autobiography.
So Bobby Whitlock, a rock and roll autobiography.
Yeah, and everybody's seen it's in its 8th printing now.
8th printing, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And your website's bobbywhitlock.com or the Bobby Whitlock?
Yeah, it's bobbywhitlock.com.
And how long did it take you to put it together, Bobby?
What happened, I had a cathartic experience, and it was 17 months of an outpouring. What happened was Coco and I had been turned onto a music site, Steve Hoffman Music Forum, and we hadn't been on it. We hadn't yet to get on it because it's kind of an ordeal to go through, and it's all the people who really know what's going on, and with my songs and everybody else's, you know, audiophiles, these people. And we hadn't been on it, and after 2 years, we finally said, let's go check it out. And so we went on this site, and there was a question that popped up, and it was, who is the girl in the Layla album? And I never really given it much thought. Her name is Kay Poorboy, and she was a great friend of Carl Radel and myself. She was in love with Carl, but that was to never be. She was from Tulsa, and turns out I answered the thing. Coco wrote it in, and when Carl passed, Kay committed suicide the year after they buried her next to him. But the thing that happened was suddenly there were thousands of questions and queries coming in. The Bobby Whitlock and all this. And so I was starting to answer these questions for everyone by way of Coco writing them in. And then it wasn't too much longer after that. She went to California to visit her parents in September of 2008, and I sat down by myself, and I'm not a real good on the keyboard with typing, pretty good with a piano and a B3, but typing is another world for me. And I said, it's just me and this guy on the thread said, I'm dragging up a chair. And so the questions were coming in, and I would answer, and they became more elaborate, and the stories became more and more, and it became a cathartic experience for me. I had a complete emptying out and an incredible healing that I didn't even know I needed.
That's so fascinating. When you were making the album, was she present?
Coco?
No, the woman that was in love with Carl Radel.
Oh, no, she wasn't. No, Kay Poorboy. When we were cutting the Layla record, no, she wasn't. She just came in and popped in to visit once, and that was it. And she was the only woman who was ever around, but she wasn't there the whole time. I forget how it was that she arrived.
Now, she's the cover painting on the album? Is that her?
No, that's not her. That was came from Franzen de Schoenberg. We went to his farm in France, and these stories, I've got these tons of stories that are in my book, and we were to play this big gig there in France, but the revolutionaries burned down the stage and all the equipment before we could ever go play, and we were on our way out the door of this farmhouse that we were staying at the French countryside, and we were on our way out the door, and next thing you know, we said, the guy said, hey, they burned the stage, they burned the equipment, they burned everything. So we didn't do anything. We were back in the house and partied, and we got in a big egg fight and everything, and Marion came in, and the place and us, we were all covered in eggs. He took us out, he said, my dad wanted me to take you out to the art studio. We're not saying anything about us being covered in egg and the whole place being covered in egg, but he said he wanted you to have your pick of anything out here. And so we walked down to the art studio, and he did a lot of portraits and some sculpturing. And all of the people looked kind of the same. They all looked like the cover of the Layla album to me. walked straight over to this one that turned out to be the cover for the Layla record.
That's amazing.
Looked at it, we all said, that looks exactly like Patty.
Really?
Yeah.
Patty Boyd. So amazing. Now, yesterday, Bobby, I interviewed Anthony DeCurtis, the editor, Rolling Stone, and he's the editor of a new book called Blues and Chaos, The Music Writing of Robert Palmer.
Right.
And on pages 233 and 235, they talk about Bobby Whitlock.
Really?
Yes, it's an interview with the late Robert Palmer. This is the writer, not to be confused with the late Robert Palmer, who was the singer. And he interviewed Eric Clapton. And so Clapton talks about how he, Jim Gordon and Carl Radle got in touch with me. They asked Delaney for a raise, and he fired them all. And I thought, why not get them? And I hired Jim and Carl and Bobby Whitlock.
Right.
And so he talks about that.
With the Delaney thing, everybody left. Nobody ever got fired from Delaney. I think that was just kind of an assumption because Eric thought, but no one was ever fired from Delaney and Bonnie and Prince. Everyone voluntarily left.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm just reading from the book. My apologies.
No, I've heard that before as well.
But it's kind of nice that, this is a great book because it's got a collection of the writings of Palmer, and he passed on in 1997.
Right.
So DeCurtis put this together, and there's stuff about John and Yoko and the Velvet Underground and Eric Clapton. So it's nice that you're in there and recognized.
No, that's great. Anthony he's one of my friends on my Facebook thing.
Is he? Oh, that's how I interview Bobby. This was amazing. He's on my Facebook and noted that he has a book. Usually I go to the publicist and they get me in touch, but now it's the other way. You can
go directly to the artist now.
Right, and then he hooked me up with the publicist, which is amazing,
Yeah.
It's fun. So the book, is it an ebook only, or is it hardcover or paperback?
No, it's paperback. And let's see, I think it's 276 pages, and there's about 100 photos in it. That's really a good book, if I say so myself, and it's a good read. I've read it now 4 times, but for different reasons. And the last time I read it was one that I really, really enjoyed it. First time I read it was because I had to, check for spelling and cross T's and periods and everything. And the second time was I couldn't hardly believe it. And the third time, I was really seeing if it was true, And then this fourth time was really a pleasurable read. I went, wow. No wonder everybody loves it so much. It's still #1 top-rated book for going on 5 months now on Amazon. Top-rated in rock music. And it was #1 in music biographies until yesterday for a month. So I had 2 #1 positions on Amazon.
And what a nice thing since Layla is reissued right now too. It's very nice that you get to tell the stories of your work on this classic album.
Absolutely. I wrote Eric here a while back, not that long ago, and told him, I said, thank you for saving me the story of Jake and the Dominoes to tell, I read his book and just for the second time, and I just finished it about 3 days ago, and I really did enjoy reading Eric's book.
Eric Clapton's book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent book.
Now,
and, I could hear his voice, as I was reading. That's a good thing. I know that to be true because people tell me that they can hear my voice, and as they read my book. And some of them, when they finally speak with me, say, "You sound exactly as I imagined."
Well, you have a great commanding voice. It's excellent. You worked with my dear friend Genya Raven, correct?
Yes, and she and I go back a long, long ways. We've been friends. We never really worked together, but we've been friends forever. It seems. I have a good story. My grandmother gave me a dobro when I was 14 years old. But when I was a little bitty boy, she would set me in her lap and play and put that dobro in mine and play me that dobro and sing to me and on the front porch. And anyways, she gave me that thing, and and the first thing I did was spray paint it black, an old National Dobro. It dates back to the 1800s.
Whoa.
Well, when I went out on the road with Bobby Whitlock on my first time around, I was up in New York City, and I had my Dobro, and I went to Ginia's house, her apartment, for a visit, and I said, could you keep this for me? I know I'm going to lose this. It's the only thing that I have that means anything to me. I know I'm going to lose it out here on the road. And she kept it for me. Well, I went on the road, finished my tour, and went back to Europe and did all this stuff. Moved in a new house in Ascot. And a couple of years passed by, and I forgot where I left my Dobro. Well, time would pass. I'd moved to Nashville. And a good friend of mine went up to New York to a convention, and A&R convention, and ran into Ginia there. She said, I've got something on the spot, and she told him what it was. And she gave me a call, and she said, I've got something of yours. I said, guess what it is? I said, oh, I hate this guessing thing. She told me it was my Dobro. So, wow, my friend picked it up and brought it to me. And Louis Hennes, who's a famous artist in New York now, has it right now, and he's doing a portrait of my grandmother, and it's the Dobro that I wrote the song Thorn Tree in the Garden on. So he's doing a picture of the thorn tree in the garden and a little dog and everything.
That's so cool. You did a couple of records with Jimmy Miller, right?
Yeah, he did well, we did one record. I was with his production company, and myself and Andy Johns produced the first record, Bobby Whitlock, and then Jimmy produced my second record. It's called Raw Velvet, both which are on ABC Downhill.
Right, Jimmy had like a 10-album deal with ABC.
Yeah, my deal was no problem. I walked in with finished product in hand. My first record I did out of my own pocket. I signed Atlantic, and they wanted to use some other players, and I wanted to use, the Dominoes and Delaney and Bonnie and everybody who'd been on I played on their records. I wanted them on mine.
Right.
Turns out it's the Dominoes and Klaus Borman as well on some of the bass, and George Harrison playing on 3 of the songs. But Atlantic didn't want it. They turned it down. And so I bought my contract back from Atlantic and ABC. Then I signed up with Jimmy Miller. I got hooked up with him during that recording of Exile in France. And went back to America for a brief stint, and Jimmy's manager walked right down the street to ABC Dunhill and secured us a deal.
Was that George Greif or Tony Secunda?
Oh, that is exactly George Greif. What a character.
We just lost George,
Yeah, I know. I love George, and he wound up as my manager.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was my manager. I signed a management deal with him, and Sid Garris was his partner, and Sid just loved the way I sang.
Now, in 1986, Jimmy and I went out to the Greif-Garris building. What I didn't know was upstairs he had Alan Douglas with all those Hendrix tapes. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I had a bunch of my stuff there with the Domino stuff, and it went when the place burned.
Oh, it burned.
Yeah, the place on Beverly.
Yeah.
Boulevard. Yeah, that place burned. I had a trunk which was full of all of my hotel keys and memorabilia and posters and stuff from the Dominoes on the road. Yeah, it went up in smoke.
Oh, that's awful.
But George was a character of all characters, I always held him in high regard.
He was always very nice to me, and I talked to him right up to the end. There was just a couple of years before he passed was my final conversation with him. But he always treated me well.
Coco and I had talked to him when we was in New Jersey. We was going to California, and all these stories are pretty much in my book. But I was going to see George, and we did go by and see him and talk to him and see the possibility of him, working with us for one last fandango, But it didn't work out because he was getting pretty ill. And his health was declining pretty rapid at that stage. And
we're losing too many.
What a fine man and a colorful character.
We're losing too many good people, Bobby.
Yeah. Well, there's the ones that are still around have managed to center themselves and find the source and put that past life behind them and embrace this new wonderful life that we have now.
Now, these records that you did on the Greif and the Jimmy Miller situation, are they available anywhere?
They're generally, like, you can get them on
Raw Velvet?
On eBay and stuff. But there's a collector's thing. But now that the word is out, very close for Bill Levinson and people, Ace in Europe, talking about putting Bobby box set, with those two.
Well, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. I know they've already been remastered and everything. Bill Levinson has already remastered them.
Because you must be on the Crossroads album, right?
I beg your pardon?
You're on the Crossroads album. Bill Levinson did that big box
yes,
for.
He did the Crossroads. He did the 20th anniversary, and he did the 40th anniversary of Derek and the Domino thing as well.
Oh, so Bill did that. Okay, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. He's the box set master.
He is. He is the box set master.
And speaking of other good guys, you're another one, man. I got to tell you, I'm so sorry that we didn't communicate getting hooked up the first time. I did over 50 interviews in the past 2.5 months, 3 months. And there's a lot of wires that got crossed. And but I tell you what, I'm glad that we picked this time right here to have this discussion.
No, you're awesome, man, and it's just a complete honor to have you on the air. It really is. And I'll have this up on YouTube either tomorrow or Monday. So, you'll be able to see it and hear it. And, how are things down there right now? How's the weather where you are?
The weather's great. I mean, it's hot in Austin, but it's starting to cool off. We've been had big fires here, and they're all down. We got a little bit of rain today, and Austin's a really cool city. It's the best kept secret on the planet, and as far as I'm concerned, this city embraced Coco and me, and every time I've even thought about leaving, it makes me want to stay even that much more. So we're pretty much dug in here, and I love it. We have friends here. We got a good mechanic and got a good chiropractor, and got Wheatsville Co-op, and it's a real green city. Austin is, Lots of people on bicycles and people running and checking their pulse,
That's cool. Now, is that where the big music festival is, South by Southwest?
It's South by Southwest, and we're just now winding down out of ACL. They have motorcycle rallies here. We have just recently 180,000 bikes, and they close off, quadrant off part of the city. The Colorado River runs through here, man. And, I mean, this is a beautiful place. It's full of rich hippies. Everybody that's our age that survived, that didn't land up in New York somewhere in Boston, but down here,
Now, Exile on Main Street came out last year. So that's another iconic album that really got another life because people really embraced it again.
Exile, Eric's first time, last year was an incredible year for me. It's like Exile came out, and I was vicariously a part of that because Mick and I was talking about what my dad did for a living. He's a Southern Baptist preacher. And then Mick started saying, don't want to talk about Jesus, just want to see his face. And so that's how that song came about. But last year, in October, Exile, then Eric's 40th anniversary for his first solo record. I was on that, and I was Delaney and Bonnie and Friends.
Yep.
And then Delaney and Bonnie and Friends box set came out on Rhino, like 56 songs, all live stuff. Me singing "Give Me Some Love," and I mean, and actually it's like Derek and the Dominoes, but we didn't know we were Derek and the Dominoes then, And,
that's funny.
After that, All Things Must Pass, and that's Derek and the Dominoes, and I'm on all but one of those tracks. And in my book, I do a song by song for All Things Must Pass. And I tell who's playing what, who's singing what, the climate of the room, what the atmosphere was like with all those Christians popping in with the rose petals and cookies and stuff. Pretty interesting. And I do a song by song for the Layla album as well. But George's 40th anniversary came out in November. Domino's, my book came out in December, and then the Domino's thing came out in the new year with 3 different configurations. And I sat down. I'm not one to sit down with pencil and paper and figure out what I've done and this and that.
Right.
How many songs on this and how many songs on that. But it was just so much, and we have an audience every week, and the people wanted to know, how many songs do you have on there? And so I counted them up. And within the last 6 months, I've had just over 61 songs with my name on them released.
That's amazing.
Probably, that's what I figured. I said, it's probably some kind of Guinness Book record or something. The only somebody I know who would have at least that would be Eric.
Now, are you on I Just Want to See His Face?
I started on an electric piano, and there's debate on whether I am or not. So I just always just left it with a story. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was waiting on Keith to show up. And that was the last thing that was going down, and I left and went on back home to Ascot. But I just left it to where, now we were talking about it, and the story sprang out of that. I've never really said, hey man, that's me on keyboards, and you know, they just didn't credit me.
Right.
I told Jimmy about it, and he said, oh man, I just forgot. Because then they just kept notes. They kept records, you know, off the cuff, you know. And one of Mick's guys had contacted us, let's see, it's been 6 years ago, and they were putting together this Stones book, and he was asking me the very same question that you asked me about this very song.
Yes, but
I'm just going to go, because I haven't sat down and listened to say, oh, that is me playing. You know, so I haven't even bothered to do that. I just, let you guys figure it out. You know, I'll go with my, that's the story, the song sprang from the story about my dad.
oh wow, it was a story about your dad.
Yeah. And we was talking about God and Jesus and all. And so that's when he started singing that.
You know, I knew Doris Troy, that wonderful woman who worked at Apple Records.
She's great.
And we lost her a few years back. But she had said to Stephen Stills, he was on the phone with her, and he says his girlfriend was away, and she goes, honey, love the one you're with. So she said that to Stephen, and he wrote the song.
That sounds about right. And it sounds like Stephen.
Now, do you know Rob Fraboni?
No, I don't.
Rob was the engineer on Goat's Head Soup, and he's a good friend of mine. He produces Keith Richards records, and he does sound consulting for the Stones. He produced.
I know who he is. I just don't know him one-on-one with him.
He's a very good friend of mine. I'm going to have him call in and talk about Exile on Main Street too. So I like talking about Jimmy Miller. I like talking about these great, wonderful records you guys made that are just so important. And Bobby, it's...
But Jimmy Miller had this ability to just, that precise moment, it's kind of like fire when the light's just right on the subject. Jimmy knew when to hit record. He knew where to place the mics. You know, he just knew how to bring the best out of the artist, you know, no matter who it was he was working with. He was a lot of fun. Yeah, he was. He left his stamp on everything. You know, Jimmy Miller Productions, man. That says best rock and roll producer there was.
I think so too. You know, I was in New York and I picked up this bootleg of All Things Must Pass. I wonder if they've finally gotten these great tracks out, because it was just amazing stuff on it. What I had heard was, and they took as much of that wall of sound that fills reverb echo off, but it still had, you know, there was a great deal that was on there when we recorded. It wasn't added on later, not all of it anyway. I love it. I don't know what other people think, but I just love what he did. I did. I loved everything about it. I mean, he came in one time, I was late coming in, and there was one Wawa, and Ringo was there,
Jim Gordon, Ringo, Klaus and Carl both were playing bass. Billy and the two Garys had all the keyboards occupied. Badfinger was Bad Company was up against the wall back there. Badfinger, the band Badfinger. There was like four guys playing acoustics. I came in, Eric and George were working away at it. And I come in, there's no pianos left except the little brown Wurlitzer, and it's set in between Ringo and Jim. And they're playing, and Phil's going, "Plays the drums, plays the piano, plays everything." This when he had Eddie Albert turning a phase shifter button, you know, on this little phase box. And so I come in, and I got caught up in traffic, so I'm absolutely late for this thing. And the only piano left was a little Wurlitzer. And I got up on it, and the only place left was on the upbeat. Everybody else was playing on the downbeat on wah-wah. And so I was out there all by myself on the upbeat. It worked out really great for me, you know.
Bobby, we got about 3 minutes left. So it's BobbyWhitlock.com, and people can see your whole history there. Are you going to work on a new book?
I don't know. They've talked about it. And Bobby Whitlock and CocoCarmel.com.
Ah, the second site.
Yeah, that's our web.
Are you and Coco making a new record, too?
Yes, and we have Brandon Temple worked on our last Lovers CD. Here he's getting ready to put the drum parts on, and it's called Esoteric. And it's going to be a 16-song, two CD set.
Nice.
Looking forward to it, man. I've been looking forward to this interview with you for quite some time. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it too, and I'm sorry I didn't. I've been so blitzed. I should have sent you an email 3 days ago. I usually do that.
All right.
You know, forgive me for that. But the great Bobby Whitlock with us here on Visual Radio. Man, it's such an honor to talk to you. If you want to come back sometime, and if you're in the Boston area, you've got to come in the studio.
Well, hey, man, my good friend Johnny A. lives up around there, and it's not impossible that I won't be up there in the near future.
Johnny A. is a good friend of mine, and do you know I can't get him in the. We keep trying to get him in the studio, and all of a sudden a tour comes up. But we're really good buds, you know, from way back.
Oh yeah, he's had a little mishap with his heart, and he's in good shape now. So you ought to get him on your show. Oh
yeah, we will, and I'll tell him we were talking.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Bobby. All right.
All right,
bye.
Bye.
The legendary Bobby Whitlock. I apologize to him because, man, I was scrambling, and I usually get my emails out days in advance, but we did two interviews this week. Anthony DeCurtis yesterday, Bobby Whitlock today. They're connected. They're on Facebook together, too, which is pretty interesting. But, man, he worked with Jimmy Miller, Derek and the Dominoes, George Harrison. He's on some of your favorite records of all time, Exile on Main Street, All Things Must Pass, his own Raw Velvet album on Jimmy Miller Productions, and his book is doing phenomenal. BobbyWhitlock.com. We're here at visual-radio.net. You know, I got a bunch of visual radio sites, and I haven't activated them all yet. We'll do that, but visual-radio.net I have happening, and we're just winding down. I got this. I'm walking out, and I step on it. Got a minute? I'm walking out of my door tonight to come here, and I step on Matt Dillon's book, The Lovely Phone. How'd that happen? Anyways, Matt Dillon's book was there on my doorstep, and so we'll probably have Matt. They sent me another of his book. We never got to talk to him, Slash and Burn. Wonder if it's a Guns N' Roses book. That's Visual Radio, September 22nd, Thursday night. Thank you all for listening. And all music, no political talk tonight. And The Lost World, of course. Thanks, Joe LaRocca. Thank you, Kevin Russo. Thank you, Anthony Gamari. And Chris, I can't pronounce your last name. And Dave Gauthier, I can't pronounce his. And maybe we'll have Elliot Murphy on very soon. Hey, Joe LaRocca. The Wonderful Show.
I was on The Wonderful Show. Why is he not going off?
Hey, because I'm doing Pantomime. It's 8:55 in the p.m. And the reeling is next. Reeling is next with movie reviews and good stuff like we do here.